Hello all, welcome to the new Simply Put series by Kalam IAS Academy. This is Priyanka Mahapatra, faculty at Kalam IAS. So today we'll be having a discussion on the newspaper dated 5th of March 2024. So coming to the text and the context section of the Hindu newspaper, one article was very important from our exam point of view, that is regarding the status of India's nuclear program. Then coming to the explain section of the Indian Express newspaper, three articles were important. First is regarding the lawmaker taking bribes and what has been the Supreme Court ruling on it. Second article is about the star dunes, and the third article is about the leopard story. So these are the four articles that we are going to discuss today, which are displayed on your screen. So the first article is about the Supreme Court's interpretation on the privileges for the lawmakers. Okay, so a 7-judge constitution bench of the Supreme Court headed by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud, it has ruled that lawmakers who are facing bribery charges in connection with their speeches and votes in the House cannot be immune from criminal prosecution. That means they are subject to judicial review. Okay, any claims to parliamentary privilege by the lawmakers, they are very much subject to judicial review. They are not immune from judicial review, and only parliament cannot have the last word on the issue. Okay, thus it has overruled its own 1998 judgment in PV Narasimha Rao versus State, where a 5-judge bench gave the verdict that the legislators were immune from prosecution from taking such bribes. So we'll discuss all the nuances of this case. Okay, first we will come to the constitutional provisions regarding the parliamentary privileges. So the constitutional provisions are under Article 105, then Article 194 too. Okay, with respect to the state assemblies. So according to the Article 105 of the Constitution, which states that no member of the parliament shall be liable to any proceedings in any court in respect of anything said or any vote given by him in the parliament or any committee thereof, and no person shall be so liable in respect of the publication by or under the authority of the House of the Parliament of any report, paper, vote or proceedings. That means the member of the Parliament cannot be sued for what they are saying, for how they are voting in the Parliament or its committees. This protects their freedom of speech. The intent of giving this privilege is to protect their freedom of speech and allowing them to express their opinions openly without any fear of legal consequences. And people who are publishing the official reports, papers or votes or proceedings of the parliament, they are also protected from the lawsuits. And this ensures that the public has access to all information about what is happening in the parliament without any fear of legal troubles for those who are sharing it. Okay, so this is the meaning of Article 105 and 194 with respect to the state assemblies and so this provision under the constitution with respect to the bribery case was previously interpreted in the 1998 JMM bribery ruling, but in current time the correctness of that ruling had to be tested. We'll see that what has been the interpretation of Supreme Court in this regard today. Okay, first we'll understand what is the law on privileges in India, in Indian context and in UK's context. So we all know that the parliamentary privileges which was extended in the UK's House of Commons, that is through the historical struggles with the monarch. That was against the monarch, right? The monarch was having undoubted rights. The king is everything. Nobody can question the king. But India's privileges, they have a different source. Because India's parliamentary privileges, they came from a law, from a statute during the British rule. And after independence, this law which was given to us by the British rule, it got transitioned to being a right under the constitution, that is under Article 105 and 194. Therefore, India's parliamentary privileges are limited than those of the UK because they aren't based on any long history of asserting power against the executive. And the court has repeatedly said that whatever privileges are to be enjoyed in Indian context, they should not contradict in any sense with respect to the principles enshrined in the Constitution. That means we need to have constitutional consistency. So this constitutional consistency is been reiterated by the Supreme Court while giving its ruling on bribery. The Supreme Court has said that whatever parliamentary privileges are to be extended to the parliamentarian, they are to be consistent with the principles enshrined in the Constitution. Because Constitution envisions probity in public life, and the corruption and the bribery of members of the legislature erode the foundation of Indian parliamentary democracy. So this corruption is violating the principle enshrined in the Constitution, that is the Indian parliamentary democracy. How? Because it is destructive of the aspirational and the deliberative ideals of the Constitution. Thereby, the corruption creates a polity which deprives the citizen of a responsible, responsive and representative democracy. How? The lawmakers are supposed to debate. They are to consider different viewpoints before making decisions. But the corruption can distort this process by influencing their votes through bribes rather than thoughtful debate. Again, democracy relies on elected officials representing the people's interest. But corruption will break this trust of people and creates a system where lawmakers serve their own interest or those who bribe them rather than the people's interest, rather than the constituency interest. So this corruption can make lawmakers more responsive to those who bribe them and not the public. So this is how corruption is violating the principles enshrined in the Constitution. Having a responsible, responsive and representative democracy. Right? And the Supreme Court has given the ruling that whatever privileges has to be extended to the parliamentarian, it has to pass through the necessity test. So what is this necessity test? That means if any privilege which is not helpful for the parliamentarian to discharge their function, they are not to be there. Okay? That means, for example, having the right to free speech. It is a very necessary function for discharging one's function. Because when right to free speech is extended to the parliamentarian, then only he or she can share the constituency opinions without fear. But does accepting bribes is a necessary function to discharge one's function as a lawmaker? Naturally not. So this is how the bribery has been said that it is not immune from criminal prosecution. Next test is the graft vote or vote of conscience, based on which the Supreme Court has given its ruling that bribery is not immune from criminal prosecution in whatever situation it may be. Okay, imagine a situation where the lawmaker is accepting a bribe, but he is not acting as per the request of the bribe giver. He is acting as per his conscience or the party line. So in that situation, can accepting money still be equated to corruption, even if he has not acted as per the request of the bribe giver, without any quid pro quo, that means without any mutual benefit sharing? Yes, that is still a bribery. According to Supreme Court, the intention is sufficient to complete the offence. The mere obtaining, accepting or attempting even to obtain any undue advantage with the intention to act or forbear from acting in a certain way is a sufficient reason to complete the offence. It doesn't matter that whether the person offering the bribe is actually getting what they want in return. Okay, it is not necessary that the act for which the bribe is given be actually performed. The attempt, the accepting, the obtaining of any undue advantage is sufficient to complete the offence. So it is emphasizing upon the intention, upon the conscience here, that any intention to influence through a bribe is present. If it is present, then it will be considered as bribery. For example, a government official who is accepting money from someone in return of expediting or fastening a permit application. And if the official gets fired before processing the application, so will that be called bribery? Because he has not acted as per the request, he has not still performed. Okay, the offense is not complete with respect to the request of the bribe giver. So will that be called bribery? Yes, it is still a bribery case. So this is what is the justification of the Supreme Court. Okay, that the outcome is irrelevant. The act for which bribe is given, if it is not actually performed, that doesn't matter. The intention is mattering here. So this is what the Supreme Court has said about the two tests based on which it has ruled that bribery is not immune from criminal prosecution. Okay, bribery is not immune from judicial review. Okay, and coming to the power, the Supreme Court has held that both the court and the parliament can exercise jurisdiction on cases of lawmakers in parallel, on the actions of lawmakers in parallel. This is because the purpose of punishment by the House is different from the purpose of a criminal trial. That means the Supreme Court has said that the parliamentary privileges are not immune from judicial review. Okay, they can be taken up by the court. Then we come to the second article about the Earth's magnificent desert star dunes. So they are very rare. They are under 10% of all the dunes found in the Earth's deserts, and they are the tallest ones. They are also spotted on other planets like Mars and Saturn's large moon Titan. Okay, they are called as wonders of our desert because they are very fascinating to see. They are vaguely pyramid shaped sand formation about 1000 feet tall, with arms stretching out from a central peak to give them a star-like appearance when viewed from above. So this is why they are called as star dunes. So how are these star dunes formed? They are formed in areas with complex wind regimes, when winds are blowing from different directions and there is net sand accumulation. Okay, and these big piles of sand can be blown around to form sand dunes at different places in the desert. Now the star dune in eastern Morocco called Lalia, which is in news recently, meaning the highest sacred point in the local Berber language, situated within the Sahara desert. Okay, this you need to know from your prelims point of view. So why this is in news? Because recently the scientists have discovered that the dune called Lalia is formed 13,000 years ago. So what is the technique used by the scientists to come to the conclusion that it has formed 13,000 years ago? They have used the technique of luminescence dating. That means the mineral grains in the sand are just like little rechargeable batteries. They store energy that comes from the radioactivity in the natural environment. They store energy within the crystals of the sand when they are coming in exposure of the radioactivity in the natural environment. And the longer the sand is buried under the ground, the more radioactivity it is exposed. And therefore, the more energy it will build up within it. And when those grains are exposed in the lab, they will release that energy in the light form. And thus, the scientists can calculate their age. Okay, so it calculates on the basis that when the grains of sand were last exposed to the daylight. Okay? When the grains will be exposed in the lab, they will release that energy in the light form, which they would have stored for so long. Okay, on that basis, the scientists can calculate their age. Now, what are the other places where these star dunes are found across the world? The largest star dune, they are found in the Zaran Desert in western China. They have been also found in places across continents like Africa, Asia and North America. Namibia Desert, Namib Sand Sea in Namibia. Then in Algeria there are large sand seas such as Grand Erg Oriental, Grand Erg Occidental and Rubal Khali in Saudi Arabia. In North America also there are Grand Sand Dunes National Park in Colorado, which contains a series of these stars. Now we come to the third article, that is about the leopard survey. So the result of the 2022 national survey about leopards, they have come up with a leopard population of around 13,874. And it's a great news that we have achieved a gain of 75% from the last survey that was done in 2014. But here there is a catch. Here it has been noticed that whatever leopard they are found in and around the tiger reserves, they have shown a gain in the numbers. But in other parts away from the tiger reserves, the number has fallen. Okay, so the leopard count, it has climbed by 21% when the leopards are in and around the India's tiger reserves between 2018 to 2022, but it has slipped by 1% elsewhere, away from the tiger reserves. Okay, underlining the grim impact of conflict and the poaching that has been happening across 89% of the spotted cat range. So according to Wildlife Protection Society of India, records were maintained and it is showing that over 5,500 leopards have been poached since 1994. Okay, so now we are concerned about the scientific name or the protection status and the largest number of leopards found in India. So the scientific name is Panthera pardus and the largest number of leopards has been estimated in Madhya Pradesh, followed by Karnataka and Maharashtra. Coming to the IUCN Red List status, it is a vulnerable species, very important from your prelims exam point of view. According to CITES, it is the Appendix 1 species. According to Wildlife Protection Act 1972, it's a Schedule 1 species which needs more protection. Now we come to the fourth article, that is, has India finally entered the stage 2 of its nuclear program? Why this is in news? Because recently our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he has witnessed the start of the process of the core loading of the indigenous prototype fast breeder reactor in Madras Atomic Power Station in Kalpakkam, Tamil Nadu. So in this context, you need to know about the Madras Atomic Power Station in Kalpakkam, Tamil Nadu. You need to remember this place with respect to the stage 2 nuclear reactor. Okay, prototype fast breeder reactor. So coming to what is PFBR, prototype fast breeder reactor. So it's a machine that produces more nuclear fuel than it consumes. And we have achieved the milestone by operationalization of this PFBR that will mark the start of the stage 2 of our 3-stage nuclear program. Homi J. Bhabha, he had designed the 3-stage program because India hosts roughly a quarter of the world's thorium. So please write it down in the comment section that in which states the thorium has been found. Okay, in which states the thorium is found in India. So the 3 stages are expected to allow the country complete self-sufficiency in the nuclear energy. So let's now see one after another. Let's now study about the first stage. It uses the pressurized heavy water reactors and natural uranium-238, which contains very less amount of uranium-235, which is the fissile material. Uranium-238 is not the fissile material. Uranium-235 is the fissile material. Please remember from your prelims point of view. Then coming to how does the nuclear fission occurs? So when the nucleus of an atom absorbs a neutron, it gets destabilized and breaks into two and releases some energy. And if the destabilized nucleus releases more neutrons, then the nuclear facilities will attempt to use those neutrons to instigate to start more fission reactions. So we need to slow down this release of more neutrons, and that slowing down is done with the help of heavy water in PHWR, because we need to control the reaction for the purpose of electricity generation. So for that we are using the heavy water, which is the water molecules containing the deuterium isotope of hydrogen, right? And the heavy water is also pressurized to keep it from boiling. And what is the end product here in the first stage? The end product is plutonium 239 and energy. In the second stage, all the 235 uranium 235 is consumed, and 238 cannot sustain the reaction because it is not a fissile material. But we can use this plutonium 239, which is the byproduct of the first stage, together with uranium 238 in the prototype fast breeder reactor to produce energy 233 and more of plutonium 239. So these are the end products of that stage 2. So this plutonium 239, which was the end product of the stage 1, it will come together with uranium 238 to produce energy uranium 233 and more of plutonium 239. ठीक है? And we have to use PFBR, prototype fast breeder reactor, over here in order to get these end products and use this form in order to give energy and these end products. Therefore, the Department of Atomic Energy has set up a SPV in 2003 called Bharatiya Navakiya Vidyut Nigam Limited Bhavini to implement the stage 2. Very important fact to remember from your prelims perspective. Bharatiya Navakiya Vidyut Nigam Limited Bhavini is a SPV. It's not a statutory body. Please remember. Coming to stage 3, plutonium 239 we got as a byproduct or end product of stage 2. This will be now combined with thorium 232, which is found in India in decent amount, to produce energy and uranium 233. So this is all about the stage 3, the end products being uranium 233 and energy. Now we'll come to the reasons why the prototype fast breeder reactor has been delayed to this time. Before that, we need to understand the fact that this fast breeder test reactor at Kalpakam, Tamil Nadu, it's a training ground for bigger reactors. It's a testing ground for the PFBR technologies. Okay, so this FBTR, fast breeder test reactor, it is a smaller reactor used to test and develop the technologies needed for larger reactors called prototype fast breeder reactors. Okay? So this you need to remember. This is the test reactor or the smaller reactor. In order to test for these bigger reactors, in order to develop the technologies needed for the larger reactors, that is PFBR technologies. So why this has been delayed? First is there has been quite a lot of change in plans, because this was built in 1977, but because of this Smiling Buddha, India's Smiling Buddha program, the sanctions were issued. You all know what is Operation Smiling Buddha. It was known as Pokhran 1, codenamed for India's first successful nuclear bomb test, conducted on May 18, 1974. It took place at Pokhran Test Range in Rajasthan, India. And this Operation Smiling Buddha or Pokhran 1, it marked the India's entry into the exclusive club of nuclear armed nations, becoming the 6th country to do so. But sanctions were placed against India for doing that test. Okay, originally the FBTR, the fast breeder test reactor, was designed to use enriched uranium fuel. However, after this nuclear test, Smiling Buddha, in 1974, international sanctions were placed on India for conducting such nuclear test. And thus it prevented France from delivering this enriched uranium. As a substitute, it was agreed upon that the fast breeder test reactor would be used. As a substitute, it was forced to use a different fuel after the sanctions were placed on India, called as mixed carbide fuel. So this mixed carbide fuel, it lowered the power output and changed the operating conditions. This was the reason for the delay in the PFBR. Because the operation conditions changed, it lowered the power output. Second is the gap in the expertise. So by the time the Indian government approved the construction of the PFBR in 2003, many of the people who had worked on fast breeder test reactor were nearing retirement or already retired. So this created a potential gap in expertise for the larger project. Then comes another reason, that is about the cost overruns because of the delays, because of the pushing of the deadlines year after year. The original plan was to develop this PFBR by 2010 and the cost was 3,492 crore. But because of the delays, because of the pushing of the deadline year after year, the new deadline was given 2022. The cost had risen to 6,800 crores. Why there were such delays? Because of this cost overruns, there were funding issues. The Department of Atomic Energy had to request for additional funds from the government multiple times. There were procurement problems also because it relied on only single supplier, NPCIL, Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited. There were insufficient procurement practices, which caused delays in placing and fulfilling the orders. So these are the main reasons because of which there were delays of the PFBR project. And another delay was because of the technical difficulties with the reactor coolant. Right? Then now come, you should be remembering these important reasons why the PFBR was getting delayed. Whenever any question comes regarding the issues with respect to the nuclear power, you can use these reasons, these issues there also in writing your answer with respect to the challenges which is being faced by the nuclear program in our country. Okay, or if any question directly comes regarding the stage 2 of the nuclear program, why it has been delayed so far. Because this is in news this year, this becomes very important for your mains exam in your paper 3. Now come, how does this PFBR work? So this uses natural or low enriched uranium-238 as the fissile material and uses plutonium-239 as the byproduct. We have discussed that. And it is designed to produce more plutonium-239 than it consumes because this has to be used in the stage 3 with thorium. So it produces more and more plutonium-239 than it consumes. It uses liquid sodium, very important fact to remember, a highly reactive substance as the coolant in 2 circuits. So these you have to remember from your prelims point of view. What are the end products? What are the coolants used in the stage 1, stage 2? So what is the meaning of breeder reactor? It is a nuclear reactor that produces more fissile material than it consumes. And in a fast breeder reactor, what happens? The neutrons are slowed down, thus allowing them to trigger specific fission reactions continuously. Then what are the challenges of stage 2 still remaining? FBR, fast breeder reactor, very hard to handle than other reactor designs. Then Department of Atomic Energy has acquired an unfavorable public reputation over its often heavy-handed response to safety concerns. Again, there is a lack of independent statutory atomic regulator in India. In 2015, the International Atomic Energy Agency has urged India to set up an independent statutory atomic regulator, because the regulator which we are having today, Atomic Energy Regulatory Body, was set up by an executive order, and it reports ultimately to the DAE secretary. So we need to have an independent statutory atomic regulator in order to win the trust of the international partners. Okay? So you need to understand here all the challenges with respect to the stage 2, with respect to the PWR, with respect to FBR, with respect to PFBR. Okay? And this was all about today's discussion. Again, the short